The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You've always got time for short time.
Hey, it's Warren Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine.
The one and only Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
Short Time Wrestling Podcast on location here in Fargo, North Dakota at Herd and Horns, a new establishment here. I believe that's 12th Street, right? Maybe 12th Street North?
Yep, you got
it. Just making sure it's on the corner of University, just on the tail end of campus. And if you're wondering what the heck am I doing in a place that's not Buffalo Wild Wings and it's not the Bison Turf, well, let me tell you why I'm in Herd and Horns. Today, our guest, Steve Saxlund, a three-time national champion here at North Dakota State, been involved in this community and this sport in almost everything. I mean, we've said before we began, if you say wrestling in Fargo, you say Bucky Mon. Well, you say wrestling, you say Fargo, Steve Saxlund's name is following shortly behind Coach Mon. So before we even get into what we're doing here with the restaurant and what you've been doing here in Fargo the last, 5 billion years it seems.
Right.
What first drew you to North Dakota State to come wrestle as a high school wrestler from Pipestone, Minnesota?
So I got to clear something up right away. I'm a long ways behind Bucky because he is iconic here.
He wrestled when Lincoln did. So I
can't even put myself in the same ballpark. You think of Fargo, you think of Bucky, but I appreciate that.
You both could probably run for mayor at some point, though, right?
I don't know if enough people know about me in that regard, but
he's the unofficial mayor of Fargo still.
Still okay in the wrestling world. You're right. We'll go with that. What brought me here was really the facilities. I was very, maybe it's underrated, late bloomer in high school. Won one state championship, was a runner-up my junior year, and didn't get a lot of looks from D1s. Minnesota wanted me to walk on, and Missouri wanted me to come in as a 150-pounder, and I knew I was getting bigger because I was skinny kid coming out of high school, and came here, got on the weight program, and bulked up to 184 my senior year. Now, I didn't cut a lot of weight my senior year. We had after my sophomore year, we had a meeting. Bucky and Pete Isaias, who is now with USA Wrestling, was
actually sitting over there right now. He's over to the other table.
He's supporting us during the supporting the restaurant.
It's a long week. I mean, this will not be the first and last meal we have here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There's many.
We'll get to the food later. Yeah.
So Pete and Bucky, we had a conversation. We had to shift our lineup around a little bit, and I was naturally a 174-pounder, and they wanted me to move up to 184. And I was a little nervous about it, but it worked out. Ended up winning the national title at 184 my junior and senior year. So that's but didn't cut a lot of weight, but that played to my strategy where hard work. Didn't want to be outworked on the mat, and maybe I was undersized a tiny bit, but it worked out because third period guys couldn't keep up.
And that was an era, Division II in the North Central Conference was just, South Dakota State was rolling, North Dakota State was rolling, Northern Colorado where Jack Mom was coaching, and then Nebraska. Omaha was in the mix in the particular part of the country. I mean, there were some wars with UNO and North Dakota State, and then even when you go over to Russell Augsburg at the Division III, a North Dakota State Augsburg duel was just as intense as maybe a North Dakota State, South Dakota State duel. I mean, what was it like wrestling for Bucky in that era with some of those monster teams that came through?
So he put a schedule together that he didn't want you to go undefeated. If you went undefeated in his schedule, his schedule wasn't tough enough. We went toe-to-toe with Minnesota and that was their national championship year, their heydays. They were very, very good. We didn't beat them, and the score maybe didn't show up, but all of our guys competed with them.
27-9 can be very deceptive.
Right, exactly. So we ran into Minnesota. I think my senior year I had 3 losses to Damian Hahn and had 4 on the year. My other loss was in the Las Vegas Cliff Keen finals to Nate Patrick, who was a Big Ten champ from Illinois. So we had a tough schedule, and I guess that's a kind of what he was preparing us for the end of the year is we're going to beat you up at the beginning of the year, and then we go through the ringer of the North Central Conference, which wasn't an easy task either.
So when the career goes through, and you've got Todd Fuller there with you, another 3-timer, and what was it like to share that experience with a teammate like that? You're obviously in business with him now in a couple different things, but when you're going through that as an athlete, and it's not just you alone dealing with the pressure of multiple national championships, what was that like to have them there?
You know, I can't say, and Todd's going to echo what I'm going to say here, is it wasn't just Steve and Todd working out every day. We had multiple guys that were All-Americans and just competitive guys, so our wrestling room was extremely tough. There might be 2 or 3 days I wouldn't even wrestle with Todd because our depth was extremely good. Our 65-pounder, 74, 84, 97, everybody was tough, and backups were tough too. We had a guy from Hawaii who was extremely good at judo, and he came in. He ended up being an All-American, but he was behind Todd and I, 74 and 84. He could have gone either weight, and he would have been a multiple-time All-American, but he was only his senior year. He was All-American when I was done. He ended up 4th. And it's just guys like that you have every day that are coming in and competing in the practice room. There might be days that I might not have scored a takedown in 2 days in the practice room. That's how tough it was, and I think that says a lot about the program and what Bucky built. And we got to have guys that want to win championships, and we got to have depth in the room.
Now, I remember looking at the Bison Open. You mentioned the name Damian Hahn. So I remember his freshman year, as I watched him come out of high school, and I was from the East Coast. He's from New Jersey, so I had a chance to watch him just obliterate people in the East Coast. And he took some losses at the Bison Open, like his first week. Who was it? You or Fuller? Somebody from North Dakota State beat him.
He beat me his true freshman year.
Okay.
I was
somebody from North Dakota State did beat him. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Todd Fuller and Chris Ruffo both beat him.
That's right.
It wasn't that year.
I thought it might have been you and Fuller, but it was.
I believe it was 2 years later. It had been a year later. Okay, I don't know.
He wasn't losing when he went.
I don't remember the years exactly, but he did. He lost because he was cutting to 84. And those guys both were up at 84. Todd and Chris Ruffo, and Damian was cutting down. He was a mess. He cut a lot too much weight.
Yeah,
and so those guys both beat him in the Bison Open. I could never beat him. You look at Steve's career compared to those guys, and to Todd and Chris, I couldn't beat Damian. But both those guys, they still give me a bad time about it.
I do remember reading that. Well, wow, Damian Hahn lost to 2 guys from North Dakota State.
Right.
Yeah, my memory was a little fuzzy on what it was, but as we get through that, and then North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Northern Colorado, all move out of the North Central Conference, move to Division I. They all kind of went together along with the women's volleyball programs at respective schools.
Right.
What was your feeling when North Dakota State and the school and the like-minded institutions decided to say, all right, we're going to move Division I? Was Fargo ready to be a Division I town? What were you had any reservations about North Dakota State and its identity moving into Division I?
So I'm going to give you the honest answer.
That's what we're here for.
Because we could go politically the other way and say, it's a good move. We didn't. None of us thought it was going to work in the wrestling world. How can we compete at that level? And I think a lot of other sports were like that too, except, football's FCS, so they weren't competing with the Big Ten, the Big 12, those schools. Lo and behold, right now they are. They're beating some of those schools. It is.
Yeah, do not schedule NDSU football in October. Just don't do it. September. Don't do it.
Playing Iowa next year. In Iowa.
I'm not a betting man, but I'm definitely going to put money on North Dakota State.
So North Dakota State.
Just because. Hawkeye fans.
For the non-wrestling people that don't know, the North Dakota State football has won 5 FCS championships in a row. They beat Kansas State. They beat Iowa State.
Colorado State.
Wyoming. Right. So it's just ridiculous. They had the number 2 draft pick in the NFL, Carson Wentz. Now he plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, so there's a lot of Eagles fans in Fargo right now, and it's almost
you
it's
think
surreal.
The Fargo fans that are Wentz fans are going to realize that how bitter some of the Eagles fans are. I don't know if they're going to be Eagles fans that much longer when the nice people out here in North Dakota be like, they are so mean to him.
Time will tell.
I'm getting off topic.
Time will tell. I guess it just shows we were wrong in our wrestling circle saying we think this is a mistake. We were wrong. and I'll be the first to admit that I didn't think it was going to work as well as
I believe basketball teams have also made the tournament.
Oh my gosh, they've made 2 tournaments. They're in the running. Correct me, I believe 3 tournaments. They're in the running. They've been in the Summit League finals every year for the last couple of years. So it's really a neat thing to see, to be a Fargo guy and love the town, to see these great things happening and love the university. It's so awesome to see that happen. It makes me, I guess it kind of brings you down to earth going, okay, what we did when I was competing with 3 national championships, I mean, that pales, what they're doing now pales in comparison to that. It's really cool, and we're excited for the university, where they're going, in the city.
First year I came out here was in 1999. I was a 19-year-old media director for Virginia. The Buffalo Wild Wings wasn't even built yet.
Right.
I think the Taco Bell was under construction. I know I spent a lot of time at Taco Bell one of those years, but when it comes in and, okay, they build the B-dubs, and then they renovate the B-dubs, and they renovate the B-dubs. Now there's a second deck on the Buffalo Wild Wings, and it's like, the joke was that deck, that patio was built by NDSU football and this wrestling tournament that we're here for. And when we look at this tournament, and a lot of people in the sport of wrestling know about North Dakota State because obviously this tournament is being held here. But I say, well, I'm going to Fargo for 8 days in July. They're like, what, Fargo? It's like, this is the greatest town in the world for 8 days in July. Haven't really experienced it much in the winter, but I live in Minnesota, so I can kind of get it. But when you come here for the first time and people say, oh, I didn't realize Fargo was this. I didn't realize this part of the country was like this. What do you tell them and be like, yeah, this is great? I mean, I found this is one of the best trips I have. It's one of my top 5 events of my career each year. And just coming to Fargo and sitting down and talking wrestling with so many different people, that this place is the crossroads of wrestling in America, is Fargo, North Dakota. How does that make you feel?
Makes you feel really great, really good. I mean, we've built, and this is kudos to Bucky. He had the vision of bringing this tournament in. I believe it was in Minneapolis in '91, and it didn't work down there because of the transportation. They're busing kids into, I can't remember where they even hosted it, downtown somewhere. In '91, the Junior Nationals, they're busing kids in, and it hurt the budget quite a bit. Here, what we have going for us here, the venue is is on campus, so all these kids are staying in the dorm. And they have a lot of teams staying in the dorms, and they can walk to and from to the venue, and it makes it very conducive to these large teams that are coming in and staying close. They don't have to worry about transportation once they're here. And the other caveat to that is safety. There's very little crime in Fargo. Not saying there's no crime, but there's very little crime. And,
if you're looking for it, you can surely find it.
Sure, yep. And I think USA Wrestling realized that, so saying, hey, this is one thing that we really don't have to worry a lot about, is kids they're not in downtown Minneapolis, they're not in downtown Indianapolis or some of these other larger cities that might bid on this, and they don't have to worry about kids getting, kids will be kids, but they don't really have to worry about them getting shot or stabbed.
I mean, we had one kid when I was with Team Virginia. I mean, we had some kids like, what happened to these? There's 2 kids from Martinsville, which is at, you've probably heard of the racetrack, but they're the south border, the North Carolina, Virginia border. Like, where were the Martinsville kids? They were fishing. I mean, it was great. I mean, it's like, what are you going to take a rod and reel and Minnehaha Falls or something? I don't think so. But as we get back to this tournament and then, North Dakota State's place in wrestling, a lot of it has to do with Bucky Bond. A lot of it has to do with this tournament and how they're meshed together. But then the move to Division I. Bucky retires. You have a new coach who, let's be honest, some of the alumni weren't really enamored with Roger as the pick, and now he's turned a lot of opinions around. He's gotten All-Americans and Minnesota kids and kids from the region to become Division I All-Americans. I mean, how does that make you feel as an alum that, wow, okay, where North Dakota State Wrestling has come since Bucky retired, and where do you think it was? I mean, what were your thoughts initially with Roger, and what do you think about the job he's done so far?
Roger's he was an assistant for several years before he got the head job, and we felt we're extremely happy and excited for him in the vision. He's been through the Division I gauntlet, so he knows what it takes. I believe he was the ASIC's first team and Wrestler of the Year. Dan Hodge Jr. trophy winner, I believe. I mean, he's got all the accolades that would make him. He's been through it. He knows what's going on. So we're excited about him. There's no doubt in my mind. I know there was like anything, you can always second guess, saying, okay, this guy or that guy.
With coaching hires, you see a hire and you're like, oh, is that a name? People were wooed by names.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah. Roger had a good wrestling career, but okay, well, it's not like John Smith's going to apply for the North Dakota State job. I mean, you're not going to get Cale Sanderson to come to Fargo. I mean, he'll come to recruit, but they've got to realize that, okay, sometimes the name is all it is a name. You don't get results with the name. Roger, right. I think, has proven that he's got the pedigree, but he's also got the technical knowledge and the coaching ability, because a great wrestler doesn't always make a great coach.
That's true. Roger's done. He's surrounded himself with good people and good assistants. Manny Rivera just took the job at Cal State Bakersfield. He was phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about Manny. I wish him the best of luck out at Bakersfield, and I know he's going to do great. Roger has. They won the Western Wrestling 2 years ago. They competed well. They brought 6 kids to the Nationals, Division Ones, which is phenomenal. It was 2 years ago. The last year, I don't want to say it was a down year, but South Dakota State had with Bono had a good year. They brought 6. Indy Shoe only brought a handful. They missed out All-American. That just shows how tough that tournament is with Zilmer. He's ranked in the top 8 most of the year, and then just didn't make the.
Yeah, but then Zilmer goes out and makes the Greco-Roman national team at the Olympic trials.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. Maybe the pressure. I don't know. Those kids at that level are so tough and they're so close that one mistake could cost you the match, and you just have to be ready for anything.
Being part of some of those monster teams as a Division II team, and you've had the opportunity to beat Division I teams and ranked Division I teams, but when you look back at it as an alum and you start seeing the coaches poll, the top 25 and receiving votes, the North Dakota State's ranked in the top 25 in Division I wrestling. How realistic did you think that was when you were? If somebody would have told you, yeah, you know what, in 10 years, NDSU is going to be ranked top 25 in Division I, as a Division II program right now.
Okay, so my honest opinion is that I think that we would have been ranked in the top 25
as a Division II school.
As a Division II school. There's no doubt in my mind, because we had those kids that competed at that level and competed well, and we placed high in Vegas as a team. So there's no doubt in my mind that we would have had those guys that would have scored points and been place winners at the Division I level, and we would have done well with those teams. And I think that was Bucky's visionary. He's like, I'm recruiting Division I guys, but we're going to wrestle at Division II. We're going to wrestle at a Division II school.
Well, it's like Mark Bauer at Nebraska Kearney, when he tells the story about Tervel Delagnev. He says he can offer you everything you can a Division I school can, with the one exception, a Division I championship, because you can wrestle the Midlands, you can wrestle the Open, all the freestyle stuff. You can do the same thing. The only thing is the qualifying at the end of the year is different.
Right.
So shifting gears a little bit about what you've been doing since the graduation from North Dakota State. You work with the Sports Commission here, the Fargo Moorhead Sports Commission. You have had this burger cookout for a number of years, Bison Burgers. I think it's weird that you eat your own mascot, but I guess Virginia Tech kind of does the same thing, eating the turkey birds or whatever the heck a Hokie is. But we look at wrestling has always been involved with the Fargo Moorhead Sports Commission, whether it be your role there or even beforehand or now after. How much in City Hall did this event and the boardrooms of where the planning commissions are, how much did this event get circled on the calendar? Because, all right, we got to be ready for this.
This event is the largest event that Fargo Moorhead hosts as far as economic impact, because it's over such a long. It's over 8 days. There are people here.
The Red Hawks homestands can get pretty rowdy, but
right. But those are mostly local people. The Fargo Marathon, which is a huge marathon draw, over all their events, they have 20,000 plus runners.
They have like a relay marathon,
right? Too. Relay, 5K, 10K, the half. But that's only over. People that are coming in from out of town are only here for a day, maybe 2. This event, you have, for instance, Team California. They're staying at the dorms at NDSU. They have 150 wrestlers that are competing, 200. So they're here for a long time, and they're spending money here, whether it's on campus or at different establishments. And there's kids staying all over town. I was just visiting with the Team Montana guys. They're staying at a hotel that's 2 blocks from my house. and we do some business with them, and I'm going to bring those guys over, and I got a fire pit in my backyard, big patio, and I'm going to have those guys over sometime this week just to have some beers.
It's a great thing you can do about this, because you can't do that with college teams, because you're looking at like boosters and impermissible benefits. But summertime, man, you can do pretty much you can just have a blast with these coaches.
So the economic impact is tremendous on how much money is spent and brought into the town, and these are all clubs from. There's hardly any local people that are here for this event. So, and there's, I think Pete estimated about 4,000 to 4,300 just wrestlers alone. And now you talk about all the coaches, the parents, people that come with them. Now, there's not a ton of parents because they most come with teams, but there's still quite a few. So it's a huge event for the city, and everybody's looking forward to it. We also run a big high school wrestling tournament called the Rumble on the Red, and that's in December every year. There's 70-plus high school teams. We run a youth tournament with it.
That's also in the Dome.
That's also in the Fargo Dome. Very similar setup to USA Wrestling. And the non-wrestling people in town get them confused. They associate me with both of them, so I just try to do my best to...
Just wrestling.
Yes, it's wrestling, and I try to keep involved with both of them as much as I can. And it's exciting just to have those two big wrestling events. And the Rumble would never have happened without this, because we wouldn't have had division and say, we should do this.
We can put wrestling mats in the Dome.
Yes, yep.
I mean... Whoever came up with that idea did a great. I mean, whether it was Northern Iowa that came up with the idea, and Bucky's like, we can do that here. Who knows? But now, as we talk, the Burger Bash is something that you've been involved with a number of years. Whether now not with the Sports Commission anymore, but you're still continuing to do it. What was the idea behind? Well, first of all, what is it? Why do you do it? Where does it sit on the schedule? I mean, this is one of the things I look forward to each year. I'm like, oh, is it the Burger Day? Is it the Burger Day? Oh, where's Steve?
Yeah.
I look forward to that.
So here's a history of the Burger Bash. When I was at the Sports Commission, we ran a shuttle that ran from the Fargo Dome over to West Acres, and we did it for multiple years. And then I started questioning. We spent a decent amount of money on it to run the shuttle back and forth, basically to get kids to the mall. West Acres is the mall, for those that don't know.
Roger Maris Museum in there as well.
Right. Yep.
No asterisks there.
No. The true, there's multiple posters around town. This is a side note. Multiple posters around town that are banners hanging up that says the true home run champion, Roger Maris, 61 home runs. So anyway, back to the bus that would bring these kids back and forth. Well, one year we did a count, and I said, I want to know how many kids are actually running or that are getting on this bus. And it was like 50 to 100 over the course of a week. And I thought it was a bad use of our money. I said, I think we can get more bang for our buck. So we came up with this Bison Burger Bash. So we just allocated those funds. We cut out the busing, and we're going to feed the coaches. And we just thought it was something that we posted all over. This was sponsored by the Fargo-Moorhead Athletic Commission, Fargo-Moorhead Convention and Visitor Bureau. So we showed appreciation to the coaches, and it actually works out really good because it's between sessions where the cadet finals gets over, and there's about an hour and a half, 2 hour window. The juniors start, so these coaches don't have to go anywhere. They can come up, and they get a burger and get fed, and it doesn't cost them anything.
Yeah, and it's bison meat. If you guys have not had the opportunity, I mean, it's lean. You cook it medium rare. I mean, you can't have it dry because it's just, you got to get out here to the Midwest. First time. Now, I always said this about the other establishment, which my reputation precedes me, is Thursday was always the day I went into the turf to get a bison burger. Thursdays, that's just how it worked out. Every year, 17, this will be 18 years, 18 straight years, I will have my Thursday burger. Now, we've got the Sports Commission in, you've got your gear, but now we've kind of touched around where we're sitting right now with some Starship playing, by the way.
Yeah.
Herd and Horns. We got a restaurant here. It's on the south end, as we said, on 12th, kind of on the opposite side of campus. This is a nice place. When Bucky told me about it, when I interviewed Coach Mon for the Hall of Fame show at the Turf back in November of 2015, he goes, Steve Saxlund and Todd Fuller opened up a bar over here. It's going to be pretty good. So high praise from your former coach there. But
thanks, Buck.
Now I'm looking around here, and part of me is doing this interview, to entice some people to come to this side of campus and check. This is. Let's just talk about the restaurant. foundations, before, not even talk about the food and the drink. That's the important thing to me, because I like good beer, I like good food. I think everybody on this planet likes that. So let's talk about the mindset behind Herd and Horns here, whether it be the philosophy behind the restaurant or just the food itself.
We have 21 beers on tap. Woohoo! A lot of local beers, regional beers. The food, we like to call it gourmet street food. So it's not it's not fine dining. It's gourmet street food. That's what you're going to get here. As a wrestler, I know what good food is. Mm-hmm. As an owner of a restaurant, it's a lot more challenging to
balance the food cost
balance everything.
A college scene.
Food cost, customer service, consistency with your food. So we're learning that as we go, because I'm not a restaurant guy. That's not my background. But
you're a people guy.
I'm a people guy, right? So we're figuring it out as we go. We are extremely happy. The decor, when you come in here, I've never heard one person say the place is a dump. Everybody's just loves it when they come in here.
There are places that are charming dumps, but this is not a dump, but it is charming. I like the horn up there, the drinking vessel, a 24-ounce horn you can drink out of.
Das Horn.
As far as like the German place is Das Boot.
Right, exactly.
Das Horn here in Fargo, yeah.
This is a big time football bar. So during NDSU football games, it's packed wall to wall.
By the way, they're really good at football here.
Right. It's packed during football. We have our overtimes for wrestling matches after here, and we've been open for less than a year. We've got we're starting to get more and more groups coming in, and we just, of the 5 owners, we have a lot of influence. I would say between the 5 of us, we know just about everybody in Fargo, or somebody would know who we are just from all the different reaches of our business careers.
And you've got a well-connected building owner. Then you have 2 wrestlers who are fairly well-known, 2 football players. So when it's football season, I mean, what is the relationship between the wrestling community, the NDSU wrestling community, alumni and fans, and the football community? Because the national championships have been won by both sports.
So the wrestlers will tell you, if you want to support wrestling, support football. Be a team maker. Buy football tickets, because football is a driving force behind all athletics, especially at NDSU. So you support football, you're really supporting your other sports, because that's a big revenue sport here at NDSU, and you have to. If football wasn't successful, we would struggle. Some of the other non-revenue sports would struggle.
And with the Dome, as much of a multi-purpose facility as it is, I remember back in February, AC/DC was on tour. I actually got to see them. They canceled the tour after this, but I was struggling. It's like, oh man, if I could get tickets on Valentine's, if I couldn't get tickets for the Excel in St. Paul, I was going to drive 3.5 hours to Fargo to try to get them here. But so you've got concerts. I remember one year I walked out of the Dome and I sat on top of my truck. I drove here from Virginia by myself. Sat on top of my truck listening to Willie Nelson at Newman Outdoor Field. And then one year the Vans Warped Tour was outside. Stepped out for a session, heard the Dropkick Murphys, and then went back to work. But I mean, just everything about this area, it seems, they say Minnesota nice, North Dakota nice too, but it just seems like everything's so cohesive with how the sports work, the school works. It's not a college town, but it is a college town.
Right, you're right. NDSU really drives the economy here.
I think college town. I think Morgantown, West Virginia.
Right.
As an example,
yep.
Blacksburg.
Yep. So the Fargo-Moorhead area the metro area is about 200 to 250,000 people. There are 15,000 students that go to NDSU on campus any day. With everybody there, it's probably about 20,000 people. So do the math. That's 10% of the people that are in Fargo. So we're a huge agricultural business here. Obviously, you have Bobcat, John Deere, a ton of different corporations that are huge agriculture. That's our number one. That's the number one
industry.
Industry. Thank you. That's the number one industry, agriculture, and we have a huge medical center, education. The medical field here, we have a huge hospital, huge shopping center. So we have a lot of people from Canada. We have the largest shopping center between Minneapolis and Spokane, Washington, is located in Fargo.
kind of a joke when I moved out. When I moved out to the Twin Cities, they're like, "Wait, what's the next biggest city west of Minneapolis?" And I'm like, Seattle. Sure as heck is St. Cloud, But
right.
Continue.
So we have a lot of good things going. We talk about the cold weather. We just the joke here is that it keeps the riffraff out.
I tell you, it's I haven't been out here and I know the difference between the 200 miles from where I live to Fargo is extreme because I know what 40 below feels like, but I don't know what it feels like as often as you guys know what 40 below feels like. So what is it like wrestling in that environment? When you go to college here and you wrestle, that's one thing that I know Steve Martin, the coach at Old Dominion, where I went to school, didn't want to ever wrestle North Dakota State at the Virginia duels because they'll win the duel in that particular part, but they're going to get beaten up. It's like, okay, we might beat North Dakota State, but we're going to get beaten up. What is it about it? Wrestling out here, you gotta be mean, man. You gotta sometimes be like, you gotta hate the world at some point to wrestle in the wintertime in this place.
It gets cold. And it's the wind.
No kidding.
It's the wind. It's the wind. There's nothing that stops a wind coming across the state. So when it hits you, so it might be the temperature might read 0 degrees. If there's no wind, you're happy. You're like, this ain't that bad. But once the wind starts blowing, it gets cold really fast.
Yeah, that take your breath away. You walk outside, it's 25 below. You're like, I remember the first time it hit me, I'm like, I left Virginia Beach for this?
Yep. So, we're like we always talk about, it does take, it's great people here, great education system. Cold weather keeps the riffraff out, and you're
how do you recruit? I mean, I know you get the kids here in the summertime. It's like, this is a great place, good campus. I mean, everything. First of all, this town has been under construction for 18 years, but I can. It's very similar to my hometown, Hampton, Newport News, Virginia. But I was actually really pleased when I got off of 94 to 29. There was no construction between 94 and the exit to get to 19th. So that's the first time. I'm happy about that. But when you bring somebody's getting recruited off the mats, it's like, it's summer, it's 85 and beautiful, and they get signed, sealed, and delivered. I mean, what were some of your teammates that you remember, like that first real super cold spell? If they were like the Hawaii guy, I want to know about this for real.
You want to know?
What was that first? What was that first winter like for that guy?
So I hit him with the first snowball that he ever got hit with because he had never seen snow. So I drilled him with a snowball, and that was fun. But we walked to both of him and I were biology majors. He was going to go in the med field. I was thinking about it, but didn't.
Now, are there tunnels here? Is that
nope.
Okay, that's the rumor. There's this urban legend that there's tunnels.
Urban legend, right? So the guy from Hawaii,
he's heard that too.
the tunnels, no tunnels here.
I've heard tunnels for years, but
you just got to toughen up. You just got to get a nice warm jacket and wear a hat and mittens, and you're fine. The Hawaii guy, he looked out his window of his apartment, and the sun was shining, and he's like, it seems nice out. Well, it was 15 degrees, and the wind was blowing a little bit, so he was cold when we got to class because he didn't have a jacket on that was warm enough. And we just told him, you have to look at the temperature and not just look at the sun shining. This isn't Hawaii. So he figured out, he got a warm coat and got a hat and mittens, and he carried that with him everywhere he went.
Yeah. I just remember that first winter, 2008. I went to check my mail. I was like, all right, I'm wearing shorts and sandals. I'm like, I'm gonna be a smart ass. I was like, I wear shorts 20 degrees. I made it to about I didn't even make it past my threshold. I'm like, I'll wait. So as we get there now, as we move on, we've also got some other things that Herd and Horns this week. You're gonna be overrun with your people. Wrestling people from all around the country. What are some things that when they step in here for the first time? You said it's gourmet street food, but when they come in here, they get I'm going to say Minnesota Nice because you're 5 minutes from the border. So you get the Midwest, Upper Midwest, the Minnesota Nice, the North Dakota Nice thing. You get good food. You get a good selection of beers. What is it that? Are you looking at this weekend or this week being as kind of a turning point for this restaurant? Going, okay, next year when people come to Fargo for this tournament, I want them, like we talk about the turf. We do talk about it because I've been going there since before I should. But you come in, all right, it's gonna be. We're going to B-Dubs. We're going to turf. We're going to go to Herd and Horns. How much are you hoping that this week really kind of kicks things off for the wrestling community for you?
Well, this is the time where I told my 4 partners, I guess Todd and I told our other 3 partners that we're going to make this week big for us. So we got to put our money where our mouth is and say, hey, let's we got to do whatever we can to get people in the door. So,
and this is totally unsolicited, by the way. I just happen to want to do this show because it's a good story here.
Right.
Plus, I like good food, I like good beer, and I like options.
So we got to promote. We got to promote in the restaurant. Now, okay, we were talking about campus earlier. We were right across the street from campus. During the school year, there's 20,000 people on campus. Not during the summer months. There's a fraction of that.
Yeah.
So
there's the professor with the Batman hat across the street. It's about it, right?
Right. Yeah. So
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right. So we have to make the summer, and all restaurants in Fargo-Moorhead struggle a little bit in the summer because a lot of people have lake cabins that are in the Detroit Lakes area, Pelican Rapids, and that's where a lot of people hang out in the summer. Those
especially
bars,
WeFest hits this week too.
WeFest is a month from now. It's beginning of August, but.
A couple years there, it was at the same time. It was hitting.
So we have we have to make the summer work. And how do you do that? And by events that are at the Fargo Dome. Since we're so close, we got to promote this restaurant as a place to go. And we know Buffalo Wild Wings. I believe it was 10 years ago-ish somewhere where I heard a stat that Buffalo Wild Wings was the highest grossing Buffalo Wild Wings in the country during USA Wrestling Week.
I think I'd heard that too. I think it was that, and it might have been. I think NDSU football might have been looped into that. The 5-6 Saturdays.
I'm talking about the whole week. The whole week.
Wow.
The week in general. And if you go over there during this week, it is pretty busy.
Gnarly,
so how do we get a piece of that pie and get some of these coaches and teams and officials to come here instead of there?
Because you know how many people look in and be like, it's too busy, we're going somewhere else. And
right,
where else? I mean, yeah, there's the Applebee's now. I mean, there's a couple places that have popped up over there, but we're staying near, there's dorms that are on this side of campus.
Yes.
I mean, it's a good mile to go that way, or it's a quarter mile to go this way. So I'm hopeful, just being a wrestling guy, that we got a business owned by a wrestler here. This is the wrestlers here. So when you're out there listening, you're getting into Fargo this week, come see Herd and Horns. Steve and Todd. I don't know if Todd will be here, but you also got some 3-time gear. Is it 3X gear or 3-time gear? How do you say it?
It's 3-time gear.
Okay, just making sure.
And the name, we even call it 3X gear sometimes, but it's 3-time gear.
It's not because they're super fat guys.
Right. 3-time. Both of us are 3-time NCAA champs, and that's where the gimmicky name comes from. And
so 12th Avenue North, south side. I guess that would be south side of campus. So where the big dome is. Keep going towards back towards the center of town. Herd and Horns open typical hours.
It opens at 11 a.m. daily. Open till midnight.
At least.
If there's a good group of people in here, we'll stay open. We can stay open till 2.
Okay. Good group, folks. So if you're getting in here later in the week, be sure to check it out. I'm about to sit down and grub on some things. I know the beer, I had the local stuff. What did I just have? It was
the Stone's Throw, Fargo Brewing Company.
That was fantastic. I think as we close out this interview, Steve, any final things you want to talk about that we didn't touch on? Because I know you've got so many things running through your head, being a hands-on thing here. You've got the gear company. You've got your history with the Sports Commission and this tournament. I mean, there's just so much to try to wrap up and encompass in 30 minutes. I don't think we can do it, but
right.
The time we got left, go for it.
I guess our business that we talked about a little bit is 3-time gear. We do event merchandise. We have our own line of sublimated items, singlets, fight shorts, hoodies, quarter zips. We do team gear for teams all over the country, and that's where Todd and I built that from nothing. We didn't really have any idea what we're doing, and kind of like the restaurant now. And we've been doing that for 10 years, and we've grown it into a pretty successful company. And we're doing social here. We talked about that briefly Tuesday night for teams and coaches to come over here at the Herd and Horns. And we're just excited. We're just entrepreneurs. We work our tails off. We hustle, and you do what you got to do to make it work.
Yeah, and on the website, where can they find you?
3timegear.com. That's the number 3, and then spelled out TIMEGEAR. 3timegear.com.
And as far as restaurant website, herdandhorns.com.
Herdandhorns.com.
Also on Twitter at Herd and Horns. I am now following. So I will be checking in and posting things. I don't know if I'll do much Snapchat because once I get a couple beverages in me, I like to be off the record. But I'm looking forward to sampling the food. I've already had one beer here. So, Steve, appreciate the time, and let's rock it this week.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.